search, in their desire, their capacity, in their emotional state, and da 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 da. It can go on and on and on, but each person is arriving at this central destination, but from so many different places. And so it takes an extreme amount of search in their desire, their capacity, in their emotional state, and da 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 da. It can go on and on and on, but each person is arriving at this central destination, but from so many different. Oh, sorry. And so there was a principle upon which the Dharma was expounded from the very beginning. He just simply said, "Ehipatiko, come see for yourself." So he talked about things, and then he would say, "Go off and contemplate that." And he spoke out of his prajna, out of his wisdom, not out of the understanding that comes from the 8 consciousnesses, but that which is beyond the 8 consciousness, because that's what he came to share with people, what he had discovered that was beyond our ordinary mental capacity to recognize, because of the way that we gather and take in and assimilate information, like through our sense gates, what we see, hear, taste, touch, smell, and think. But so he was showing us a new way by which we could receive information that would, and we would have come to a different conclusion about life and the meaning of life. And we could walk out a life that was not dependent upon our perceptions based on the information we took in through the sense gates. It afforded us an opportunity to experience something that he called reality prajna, that made how we have fabricated and see our existence in this world something like a dream, an illusion. And we can relate to that because we all dream. Sometimes we don't remember our dreams, but we do all dream. Sometimes we do remember our dreams. Sometimes they're good and sometimes they're not good. But when we wake up from them, or sometimes they can be so frightening that we wake up in them, we get tossed out of them, we can recognize, oh, that was a dream. But when we were in that dream, there was great elation as if that was reality, or great trepidation if it was a bad dream. Sometimes we wake up in a sweat, heart palpitating, and we say, oh, that was just a dream. But yet the feel of the dream is still there, even though you know, oh, that was just a dream. Because it has a semblance of being real. So there is something that we take away from the thoughts that paint pictures in our mind. So we live this life out according to the thoughts that have arisen, that paint pictures in our mind, according to what we have encountered in life and our perception of that and how it has affected us. And he went on to teach methods, methodology of how to deal with these appearances in life. That's why we talk about seeing life as a dream, as appearances, as the coming together of something, but then it breaks apart. So it's not permanent, it's impermanent. We like things that are not pleasant to be impermanent. We always talk about, the basic go-to phrasing is we don't like impermanence. But the things that we don't want in our lives, we don't mind those being impermanent. So we like impermanence too. I mean, it's just we have to be careful about the things that we hear, take as gospel truth and repeat because it's really just not true. And so we wonder why we have some difficulty, because just lies. We do like some things to be impermanent. And some things we have great difficulty letting go of due to our attachment to things. So we focus primarily on the fact that life is short in this world. Because there's birth, there is death. From the moment you are born, you're moving towards death. And everybody says, yeah. We say that nothing you have is yours, not your wife, your husband, your children, your houses, we say, yeah, I know. Actually, you could even say hardly any thoughts you have are your own because we're informed by the projections that come to us. And most of these, people get paid big bucks to create, these projections in your mind, like the commercials that come on in between the mentalist episodes. And suddenly I found myself, wanting something because they have like mostly food commercials. And I have, something has shifted since May, my whole way of eating. And not only can I not eat what I used to eat, I also cannot eat as much as I used to eat. So but when I see these commercials, I think I want that, but I really don't. I really don't want it. But the commercials, the subliminal message, it's not even subliminal, overt messages that they send arouse a craving. So we're constantly bombarded by this kind of appetite for things that keep us mired in a world of grasping and needing more, or not feeling that we are enough based on the images and the sound bites that come to us continually. And depending on who we are with, if they're more neurotic than we are, then they will be so perturbed by the conditions in the world that they will feed that to us. And because we care about them, our attachment to them then causes, even if we weren't that concerned about some of these other things, our attachments to them create a kind of disturbance in the mind. And so we're constantly having to deal with all of these things. And the Buddha said this is what causes our basic dissatisfaction with life, when there actually could be a contentment with life. Like whether it's going good or not going good. It doesn't really have to touch us in the ways that we have allowed it to touch us. But because we think of ourselves as so solid, concrete, and permanent as a self, and with all the identifications that come with that, it becomes difficult to fight this onslaught of imaginary and temporary obstacles. So it means that We have a hard time dealing with anything that's not to our liking. And we have a hard time just going through what life has to offer and what life also brings our way, um, that we don't find that pleasant. And when we do like something, we have difficulty being moderate in our liking of it. So something has happened over the past 3 or 4 years with the coronavirus. Now meditation is really becoming the buzzword. Everybody, young people, old people, sick people, well people, you know, because the world has been shaken up. We're here in this country on the brink of a political shift that has some people really, really concerned. Others have been born into a system that they never had it so good to begin with. So it's another day in the life for some of us. But those who've had it really good, whether it's a class of people, or whether it's individuals because of a certain status, they're really shaken up. They're really, really concerned. I remember doing the, we're off, right? Okay, because some people don't know me out there. I remember doing the oh, okay, I still say it. I remember doing the Vietnam War, and there were a lot of young men who didn't want to go to war. They didn't feel that that was a war that we should be fighting in. Different people have different views about what should be our responsibility as a free nation to support the liberation of others. But I know within our community, when I say our community, I mean the Black community in the 60s. Well, that was a decade when I couldn't walk across the stage and graduate because I refused to press my hair. You don't know what pressing hair is, because y'all's is straight, but ours is kinky. And it was seen as an act of defiance if we didn't make our hair look like your hair. Ours couldn't be natural. And so I didn't get to walk across the stage. And so when our brothers and our fathers went to war, we didn't have anybody over there who was calling us nigger. Our enemy wasn't over there. They were over here. When my Roshi, Bernie Glassman, said, in order to really get your Diksha from me, you have to go to Auschwitz. I said to him, I'm not going. He said, you have to go, Panipati. I said, America is my Auschwitz. And he gave it to me. And he never asked me again. And I wasn't mad with anybody. I'm just speaking the truth. That's all. You don't have to be mad about things. Things are like they are. And so, but it's being very clear and understanding that, how things are and how it doesn't have to, it can inform you so that you have clarity, but it doesn't give you a right to have bitterness, hatred, and anger, because that's your own stuff. That's what comes out of you. You could do something to me, but the minute I respond with a kind of outrage and violence, that came up out of me. And so this way that the Buddha is teaching us about life and how to overcome our attachment to whatever state we find ourselves in, being born where we are, how we are, who we are, what we have. When I look back over my life, most of my greatest accomplishments were by happenstance, being in the right place at the right time. That I worked hard, but working hard didn't always get me what, you know, it didn't always get me what I hoped it would get me, except the value of learning hard work, you know. But I would run into somebody who knew somebody who created a opening for me somewhere, and I still ended up with something. So it's not, I used to subscribe to this idea about you don't get what you deserve, you get what you negotiate. That was hardcore. So I have lots of karma to pay for. I am paying for it. But that was how I felt in those days. You don't get what you deserve, you get what you negotiate. Oh, how I have changed in my view in learning to appreciate that nothing that comes to me did I earn on my own. Nothing that I have, from the clothes I wear, like how many hands had to touch this cotton. And I can relate to cotton because my family picked cotton. When I moved to North Carolina, where they escaped from, they wouldn't even come down here to see me. They didn't understand why I was in North Carolina. But I came to North Carolina because for me, it was a way of healing my family trauma. I thought if there was anywhere in the world that I could serve, it would be here in the South because of what my family and those generations endured. So that's why I came. One of Buddha's lifetimes, he encountered a man. There was somebody escaping, as the story goes, and he passed him. And when the king's army came, I think the king was with him, and he said, "Did you see a man pass through?" He didn't answer because he couldn't lie and say, "I didn't see him," and to say which way he went, he was sure to be captured. So he just didn't say anything. He was asked a second time and then a third time. And then he instructed his swordsman to come down and cut his arm off. And he thought to himself, this was the Buddha in an earlier incarnation, I choose to become a Buddha for the sake of all living beings. And he will be the first one that I teach. And then it said that when Shakyamuni became awakened, a Buddha, that king from his prior life was one of his first five, the five that he walked with before he separated and started seeking on his own. He went back to them when he awakened, and he was one of that first group of five. Now, it inspired me, that story. And I gave my life to wanting to come to the South. But not y'all's fault. Nobody did it. I'm just saying that's what inspired me. And I've learned a lot over these 20 years. I learned not a lot about the South. I learned a lot about Panavati. And that's what this journey is all about. We want to help others. But the best way we can help others is to know and transform ourselves. This is a one by one by one proposition. This is how we take evil out of the world, because I can tell you that sister was evil. And thinking I had so much Dharma in me because I knew the doctrine and I embraced the doctrine. I love the doctrine. Sweet sounding words. And I learned the doctrine. And I could teach the doctrine. But as far as becoming a Buddha, so far. Because something else is required. The Buddha said that when the counterfeit has come into the world, then the true teaching will lead. And this has to do not so much with what is done, but what is not done. Has not so much to do with what we know as what should be cultivated. I heard a talk once, and this great guru, I loved his example. And he talked about how we want the fruit and the flowers, but we don't want to dig around so much in the dirt, and definitely not the manure and all that it takes to take that fruit or flower from its seed to produce a blossom. We want the blossom, and we think that so much talking about it, that we'll have this transformation and we'll just turn into flower, but it's not so. It's not what we know in that kind of way. This is called the Dharma ending age because of that. That now we're left with a lot of talk, a lot of empty theories, and but whatever was that great power, we don't see it manifest in the lives of practitioners. We think up to the age of enlightenment, around the end of the 18th century, early 19th century. That was an attempt by the philosophers, to kind of systematize all human knowledge. And in that way, hermeneutics became a part of that kind of way of teaching and organizing information. So and spiritual things like religion got included in that. So it left the idea of ehipassiko, like translated, come see for yourself, but it's more like direct knowledge. Something that can be experienced, can only be known through experience. And it became more of an intellectual pursuit and and exercise. And that's where we are today. For the most part. Not 100%. And that's the good news. It's the Dharma ending, ing age, not the Dharma ending age. For those who still want to come see for themselves. So he talks about making this journey and that it takes 3 kinds of higher wisdom. And maybe wisdom is like sort of the highest word we can use to speak of intellectual attainment. And so we don't know what else to say. But Buddha Master suggests that we just leave the word prajna as prajna to differentiate it from the word wisdom. Because once we use the word wisdom, we've already brought it down into our, maybe at the highest level, but we've still brought it down into some realm or some space that that the intellect decides what it means. And the intellect is useful, very useful for living in this world, but not so much for overcoming the world. It takes something different. And this is what he offered. And he says, well, we have to use some language because in our great delusion, we have to start wherever we are. And if we're in delusion, we have to start with language that is deluded or imperfect. So you can't really get the concept across because you can't, in our deluded state, we don't see. That's what delusion is, not being able to see the truth of something. So we start with how we do see. And that's perfectly okay. And bit by bit, we start to refine how we see, how we hold something, how we understand something. We think about it deeply. And we come to some conclusion. And step by step, we make some changes in our life. And we know all of these little steps. That's Buddhism 101. You know. But then it starts to require more of us. And that's where we're not so developed. We're so comfortable in our Dharma. When it starts to require a change, a fundamental letting go of our identification, that's when it starts to get a little bit uncomfortable. When I have to be willing to surrender my attachment to my view. It doesn't mean I don't have a view, but it just means that I can acknowledge that you have a view as well. And mine is based on something that I think makes sense to me. So I have to hold it. Your view is based on something, as crazy as I think it is, based on something that makes sense to you. You see, that's the starting point for two people who have very different views being able to come together. One of the fundamental issues we have in our country today is that we have two like opposing views, and each side thinks the other side, beyond being wrong, is absolutely crazy. Now, the thing about views, attachment to views, is that in our attachment, we become our view. So to let go of our view leaves us grounded. We have no basis, for our identification. We are our view. I think my battery went out. You can hear? Okay. And so we have to cleave tenaciously to our view, because that's me. That speaks for me and mine. So coming down here, the first thing I learned after I made that move, because I was going to help people, I'm going to teach people something about, how to understand things and live a happy life and how to love people who are different and all of that, was I had to give up my view. What I thought they needed to learn to be good people. Like, holy shit, the more I prepared to do this, the more I was like, Houston, we have a problem. The more I realized that I had to look at me. Because it was easy to talk the talk. But when I jumped from the frying pan into the fire, and I had to walk the walk, that wasn't as easy. And that wasn't as easy. And I saw Panyawati in a different way. And I knew that she could not survive. She had to die. That the hatred and the delusion that she thought was not there, it was there. I just hadn't gone deep enough. Because unlike my parents and my sisters and brothers, I had not experienced the things that they experienced. Now I was getting a little taste of it. She was about ready to kill somebody. And I didn't know what to do. Because in my heart of hearts, I thought I had gone through everything that I needed to go through to be able to love others like I love myself. But this was calling for more than that. Not love others like you love yourself, Panyawati. But could you give up yourself to love? That was the question. And it's this level of freedom that I wanted, because I didn't live in anybody else's skin. I just lived in mine, right? So if there is any suffering going on, that's my own stuff, regardless of what's said or done out here. That's my own stuff. So if anybody in here is suffering in any kind of way, you should know and acknowledge that that's something in you. Now, you don't have to feel bad about it. It's the human condition. But this path is a way out, or a way to overcome, to surmount the kind of thinking that causes that suffering. And nobody can do that for you but you. So every person in this room has a different kind of suffering. We have to know what it is. For me personally. And the thing about suffering is that even when we know what it is, because of our attachment to identity, we have a hard time giving it up, even when we don't like it, even when we don't want to be a certain way anymore. We still do those things. We still harbor certain thoughts. We still act in certain ways. I was thinking about it this morning as I prepared this Dharma talk. I was thinking about my closet. Now, I've been a nun now for 20-some years. I still have a closet full of clothes. At first, I bought a couple of pairs of sweats so that if I'm working, and when we, I was always on some kind of construction project. Every time we bought something, needed to be fixed up, then we buy a bigger place, needed more fix up. Then we buy the biggest place, needed the most fix up. And so I started collecting sweats, outfits and things like that. Now, look, I got a whole closet full. Some of them I haven't worn for 10 years, but they're still piled up there. That's that kind of attachment. And I've gone through them a few times over the years. When I was getting rid of Panya Deepa's clothes, I said, well, I might as well clean out my closet too. But my stuff didn't make it into the giveaway bag. His did. Mine is still there when I go home today. You see, what I'm saying is, I saw an attachment that I had. Some of them I can't even get in them because I've gained 20 pounds, but they're still there. I might lose weight, who knows, I even saved one pair of high heels, 5-inch heels. And once a year, I put them on. I can't walk in them now, but I still put them on. And I had nice legs. That was a gift from my mother. And my husband always liked me in those really high heels. And I still have nice legs. And I was like, too bad I can't wear those heels. But it's just something in the mind, that makes us, that's an identification with somebody that I was 30 years ago. She's still there. She may not want to act out, but she's still there. And I said, I'm cleaning out my closet today. We were just talking about, that's one reason why we take certain precepts. As a monastic, you can't have, you're not supposed to have more than your 3 robes. Because it helps to eliminate that identification, even with being a monk. Don't go upstairs and look in my closet up there, because I probably have maybe 10 or 15 sets. And my excuse is so I can have them in case anybody needs them. But when anytime somebody needs them, what color? Because I like a certain color. I like this color, I like this color. Y'all can have those. And the browns I wouldn't touch because browns just don't do anything for me, don't give me any kind of energy, you know. But see, those are little things that we hold on to in the way that we think. And we think that they don't matter, but they do matter. Because this is what keeps us stuck. It's these little things. We're looking at the big things and saying, oh, I don't do that. I don't kill anybody. I don't steal anything. I don't lie. I don't, like, yeah, so I'm a good Buddhist. But it's the little foxes that spoil the vine. It's these little things that bring us into this place that makes life unsatisfactory. And I'm going to be finished in a few minutes. That makes life unsatisfactory for us. And when it's unsatisfactory for us, this discontentment makes us share that with everybody else. And so we have a world full of discontent. Discontent, fear, anxiety. And so he taught methods by which we could put a little bit of separation between the things that we attach to, that we call me, mine. And this is where we start. And it takes a lot of discipline to stay with that. Because we like our intellectual stimulation. That's why we have these libraries full of books around a doctrine that was so basic and so simple that it could be summed up with 3 precepts. Who knows what they are? That's it. What does that mean to you throughout the day when you encounter someone on the street? Somebody cuts you off in the car. You work for an evil boss. What does that mean to you when you have to handle the vicissitudes of life? How do you go through all of these things and apply those 3 pure precepts? It takes a lot of thought. And that's simply what cultivation is. With our thoughts, our words, our speech, our actions in the moment. And when we speak about meditation, like, we don't have to be in some strange posture or strange position. But what it means is being mindful every moment of the day. It's a part of cultivation. The first part is listening to Dharma talks so that one knows one's faults. It's hard to know them. I mean, most of us consider ourselves good people and want to be good people. So if we really saw an overt fault, we try to work on it. It's our blind spot That's why we need each other. So he points to our blind spot. Then we have to work at overcoming our blind spot. Now, something crept into the Dharma that was one-sided. And this is where I want to end today. That was one-sided. It was all the things that are wrong. It pointed to where we are in this moment and time, in our greed, in our hatred, and in our delusion. But somehow it de-emphasized our original appearance, our original nature, our true self. So it's like being on the seesaw with a friend, but it's always sitting in one position. So it'll never come to the balance unless one also cultivates a mind stream that brings back to one's true face. That's the only way that one can do all good, all manner of good, because you have to know that good is resident in you. So whatever the self-talk is about yourself and about others, part of cultivating is cutting off that kind of self-talk. Whatever you look out there and see that is so foul and who's so ugly, it's cutting off that kind of talk about this. Hard to do in times like this. And it's not taking up for evil, but when one recognizes it, what can you offer in the place of judgment and criticism and hatred and what comes with that, which is fear and doubt and anxiety? What powers do you have to subjugate? Do you have any? He spoke of them. But first, one has to take care of oneself. He said, and when you do this, something happens. It says a capacity arises in you that gives you, it's a certain kind of quality that gives you the ability to be better, to be useful, to be helpful, to have a certain contentment, to have a certain strength, to really be able to support others, to bring them out of their darkness. It could be the capacity to talk with someone and no one has been able to help bring them out of their delusion. But because you listened and you understood that the reason he thinks that this way or she thinks this way is because they're holding a particular view of life based on some hurt or some fear that they have. And if I could address that, then maybe they can see things a little different. I'm never going to be able to change their mind otherwise, because they have their own lived experience, right? So we have to be wiser than that. Never going to be able to make the law make everything all right, because the law is meted out by who? People like me and you and them. We already have enough laws. But how to embrace the human heart and how to give people hope in times like this. How to create the conditions for good fortune to come into your own life and into the lives of others. How to create an environment, circumstance for that flower to bloom means that we have to put our hands in the dirt. And if we want an even bigger, prettier flower, we have to sprinkle the manure. It's a challenge, but I really want to make a difference in the world. I don't know about you. And when I say make a difference in the world, I mean, we have our things, we got our mantras, we got our mudras, we got our prayers, we got our incense, we got prayer flags, we got all of these things, right? And all of that's fine. But it has to, in the final analysis, show up in the real world. Because all of those things that we do, those things we just do for ourselves, to embolden ourselves, to give ourselves a certain amount of confidence and comfort in truth being manifest outwardly. And that outward manifestation comes in how we make the world better. How we actually make the world better. And it starts with us, wherever we are, at home. I'll never forget the day that Joe came in here and told the story about how he just shifted in his way of being with, I won't say dealing with, being with his mother-in-law, that it was so difficult for him. But he decided one day that he would just try the Dharmic approach and shift the way that he interacted with her. And I could imagine what that was like, because I live with Kay, and Kay likes everything in its place, and Joe likes everything in its place. And he said, so if there's nothing in the sink, when you come in the kitchen, when you leave the kitchen, there should be nothing in the sink. I'm like, that's what a sink is for. No, and I get it when it's enough that makes it worth stopping to take care of that, but not for one fork or whatever. So I understood his mother-in-law, but he decided that he would handle her differently. And when he did, he found a flood of compassion that rose up in him for her. And he found that instead of her conversation being grating like he didn't want to hear it, he wanted to hear it. He wanted to give her his time to just listen to her. So he discovered, he found himself. That's what I'm saying. This is a way of discovering oneself, one's higher self, one's happy self, one's powerful self, the one that has the capacity to save other living beings. And it will start to show itself and manifest from these little shifts that we make. Not big ones, but just little ones. You'll find yourself just patient when before you just didn't have any patience. Forbearing. Don't have to have anything going on. Don't need to be entertained. Little courtesies where you thought you just weren't self-seeking, you start to say, oh, I am a little bit selfish. Because I don't want to hear about what you want to hear about, because I want deep Dharma now. But instead, you want everybody to hear something that they need to help them grow today. And we'll stop running, looking for grasping of knowledge. And we'll start resting and abiding in a certain kind of peace and harmony. After a while, you even start to forget about yourself. All day, every day, without even realizing it. So they will be consumed with what have I done for you lately. When a person comes up and talks to you, instead of them, taking up your time or interfering, you can give them your undivided attention. Because for that moment, they are the only person in the world. And sometimes a person just needs that from somebody. To know that they are seen or that they're heard. And that might not seem like a big thing to you, but you can tell by how many of these kids are going into these schools and shooting it up. That some of them just want to be seen and heard. So you should ask yourself, what can I do today? That's the question before you step out of your door. Who can I help today? And then look for that opportunity. You don't have to look far. You don't have to go overboard, but just noticing who passes in front of you, giving someone a smile, not being perturbed when somebody cuts you off. And in time, you'll stop thinking so much about yourself. And what used to be problems just becomes what comes up in the course of a day, and you handle your business. No anxiety, no crowding out the mind with what am I going to do because this might happen tomorrow. Freeing up the space for the right ideas to come to take care of tomorrow. And life becomes wonderful to live. Buddha Master called it marvelous existence. Because all of the goodness in you starts to be seen by you and reflected off of you. That's it. Things come with this. these little abilities. You don't have to call them anything, but you'll start to notice them. Because they're laws to the universe. That's all. And things will happen. The things that we call miracles are just simply laws of the universe in operation that we didn't know about. That's all. You don't have to call them anything. You just see that things start to work out. Things start to go better. And you look at life differently. You live life. And you'll love life. And you'll love people. And our world will change. I know it'll change because we're in it. And we're searching for what is true. So thank you for coming today. The first body of a Buddha that we need to realize, the first level, is the Dharma. The second will be the Sambhoga, comes through the appearance of a Nirmana. That's the third body of a Buddha. Someone who comes and shares their realizations in a way that we can connect with it. That's the benefit and the sole purpose of your teaching. Now, I'm not speaking about myself. I'm just a friend on the path, but a great virtuous one. He straightens up what's been confused. Sometimes that means going back to the beginning and starting over to make quick progress. And when these three bodies come together, then we have what's called the ultimate Buddha consciousness. And this is where we're going, step by step. It's not going to be structured in the ways that appeal to the intelligentsia. It's a ehipassiko way. Little by little, discovering yourself, correcting your erroneous views, peering and gazing at your original face, changing your self-talk, and walking out what you say you hold to be true. And a different kind of wisdom will manifest. And it will be effortless. Because you already possess it. You just uncover it. May you be well and happy and peaceful. May no harm come to you. No danger. May you always be able to meet the inevitable difficulties of life. What are you doing in town?